Hello, Nancy here with a quick run through this handout about the considerations for teachers who have never taught IEW before. So if you have just joined the staff here at school or you're just learning IEW for another reason, maybe your grade level has just started it, I just wanted to create this document in this video to reassure you that it's going to be okay. You might feel a little overwhelmed after completing the training. It is a lot to learn all at once, but I don't want you to panic. Remember that your students will be using this method for a number of years. If they go all the way through St. Ignatius Chesterton Academy, they will be using this method for more than 10 years. So it's okay. You will learn so much by teaching it. So just relax, take a deep breath, and we're just going to jump in. First of all, I want to encourage you to practice what you preach. When you completed the IEW training, I really hope that you were able to do those practicum exercises. Even if you did that, and especially if you did not, I would really encourage that the first time that you teach a unit to your students, that you practice at least one of the exercises that you're going to give them. So for example, you've never taught IEW before, you're starting with Unit 1, which is simply making a keyword outline sentence by sentence from a paragraph that you give the students. Do that ahead of time. Come in with a sample keyword outline that you've created that's just in your notes. You're not going to share it with your students, but you can have it there as a reference if they get stuck. You would think that on the spot you're going to come up with some really great ideas, but sometimes when I wasn't well prepared ahead and I didn't have a sample keyword outline in front of me, there were times when I also was stuck. So that can just be really helpful. Also, the first time you're going to teach them how to write a paragraph from a keyword outline, make sure you have practiced it at least once on your own. Now, you don't have to do this for every assignment you give the whole year, but make sure that you have done it at least one time before you teach a new skill. Having said that, make sure you don't get stuck in any particular unit for too long. You don't have to feel like your students know everything they need to possibly ever know, for example, about the story sequence chart before you could move on to a Unit 4, right? So teach them the basics of the unit, especially for their particular grade level, and then move on. Each unit does build on each other, so you want to make sure that you cover all of the units, give it enough time, but don't feel like you have to be stuck on a particular unit. Especially, it can be tempting to stay on a unit that the students are really enjoying and just want to stay there forever, but we need to just kind of keep moving through. Don't jump into a later unit immediately because where the students left off the year before. So let's say you're a new teacher in 5th grade, and you know that your students got through Unit 4 in 4th grade. Do not begin in September in Unit 5. We always want to start back at the beginning. There would be a number of reasons to do that, especially for you. You're a brand new teacher to IEW. You need to learn how to teach those initial units. So that's going to be important for you to see how they build upon each other. Students who've never used IEW before, students who are new to our school, they need to start from the beginning as well. So you're going to be learning together. Excuse me. But even if you have students in the classroom who have done those earlier units before, it's important for them to get this review. They can also help you teach new students. They can help teach you. You can, if they maybe complain a little bit like, oh, we've done this a million times. Awesome, can you show me how it goes? Let them teach it to you, and that'll be a great way for them to really solidify what they've learned before. Excuse me. And if everybody catches on very quickly to a unit, you can move through it very quickly. So for example, when I taught 8th grade English, the students had done IEW for a couple of years. We covered Unit 1 in a single class period. The next day, we did Unit 2, which would be writing, from that. And we were done with Unit 2 by the end of the first week of school. And then we moved right into Unit 3. So you can move quickly through units that the students are really comfortable with. I also encourage you to remember, as you are teaching IEW through all of your years, that the goal is not to create perfect writing assignments. The goal is to continue to give your students practice in improving their writing skills. We want them to have a toolbox full of all kinds of writing skills. So at times their writing is going to sound awkward because they're going to be trying out a new sentence opener or dress up or a decoration. That is okay. We just want them to practice. It's like when you start a new sport and you're practicing all these drills and you think, oh my gosh, how many times is the coach going to make me shoot free throws? Well, you practice that skill over and over and over again in practice so that during the game you're really great and your team wins based on that last free throw you got at the end of the game. Okay, so don't worry about it being awkward as they're practicing these skills. Make sure that every assignment you give your students is accompanied with a checklist. It's really important. Going through that checklist before they begin writing can help you really identify students who might not understand everything you're asking of them in the assignment. So I would always read through the checklist. I would call on a student, hey, John, can what are the first requirement under structure? Have him read it. Okay, John, what does that mean to you? Okay, so make sure that the students understand what's expected of them. This also is a great tool when they're writing and they're asking you questions like, do I really need a strong verb in every paragraph? Oh, look at your checklist. What does it let you know? I always refer them back to the checklist. What does it do? Oh, it says at the top of your checklist. Make sure you have that out in front of you. As they're writing, I would have the students mark on their checklist what they have included in their paragraphs. So for example, if they need a strong verb in every paragraph and they're writing paragraph 1, once they have that strong verb written in there, I would encourage them to put a small dot in the box on the checklist. Then when I'm correcting, I can see, all right, this student thought they had every dress up in every paragraph, but they consistently missed the quality adjective. So now I know, I make a note, make sure I review what a quality adjective is with the class and possibly just with that student in a little one-on-one when we have our next in-class writing time. It also makes correcting really easy to go through. It makes scoring an essay much more objective and less subjective, okay? And that can be important. And it lets students know from the get-go what an assignment is worth, and especially as students get older, sometimes that's important to them. Every assignment starts with a keyword outline. Do not make any exceptions to this rule. When I first started teaching using IEW, I didn't always require it, and you're going to get, that was a huge mistake. You just don't get as quality writing. It's not as well organized. Also, requiring every assignment to have a keyword outline helps them, they get to a point where they can create outlines much more quickly and intelligently, and it makes the whole writing process so much faster when they have a really good outline in front of them. In my own, personally, my own children, when they were in college, if they were stuck on a writing assignment, sometimes they would call and ask and say, hey, can you pray for me? I have a 12-page paper due in 2 days and I haven't started it. And when we would talk through it, and sometimes they would have an outline already, sometimes they wouldn't, and I would encourage that. And every time they were like, yeah, that helped so much. I'm so glad that I created that outline. So this is a skill that's going to be really valuable for them. Okay, make sure you require a rough draft. I would recommend always requiring the rough draft to be handwritten. This reduces plagiarism, but it also ensures that they're actually going to have a rough draft and a final draft, and that they aren't just writing it one time and turning it in. Make sure it's every other line. That gives you a space for them to cross things out. I always encourage them to go through and make changes as they're writing this rough draft. If they turn it in and it's perfect and nothing's written on it, I know they haven't spent much time on it or given it a whole lot of thought. Final drafts, when students are older, we usually have them type them up, but a handwritten final draft, if it's neat, is fine and very appropriate, obviously, in younger grades. Make sure they still write every other line, because occasionally they'll catch an error, and I would let them do a simple cross out if something needs to be changed, or a caret and adding in a word that might have been missed. Too many changes, though, and then I would have them rewrite it. But, an occasional change here or there. It also gives you space to make comments as you're correcting it. Speaking of correcting it, make sure you take notes as you're correcting their essays and pay attention to themes. Like, wow, I had a number of students, we tried the number 3 opener for the first time, and half the class didn't do it correctly. Okay, I'm going to make sure I really revisit that with them. Stick to the easy +1 formula that Andrew Pudewa teaches in the IEW method. Teach a skill, have the students practice it, and only once that skill is easy, add in one new thing. Do not try and teach too many new skills at once. It's just overwhelming and the students aren't going to get it. Now, this can be hard if you have a classroom of students, maybe some are familiar with IEW and some are brand new. So what do you do if you're trying to follow easy +1, but you have a broad range of skills in the same classroom? A couple of ways that I've done this. One, I make that new skill optional. I will just go around, if I only have a few students who I know are really not going to be able to do this, I've introduced it to the class, but I know this is going to be too much for them. I will just privately go up to them as they start writing the rough draft and say, you know what I'd love to do for you is I'd love to make this new thing, the new number 4 opener, optional for you and just make it extra credit. I'd like you to really focus on the other ones. If you want to write a number 4 and give it a try, that's fine, but I'm not going to penalize you if it doesn't work out well. And that can be a huge relief to students who are still learning. The other option would be, and I've done this when I had a classroom of students who'd been using IEW for about 3 years, and that was half the class, and half the class had never used IEW before. I just created 2 separate checklists. It really wasn't that difficult. I would create the student for the more experienced writers, and then I would make a copy in my Google Docs and just eliminate the things that I knew would be too much to ask of these brand new students. So it was pretty simple and quick to create the 2 checklists. And then when I handed them out, I just let the students know, hey, I have a checklist. For those who have a lot more experience, I'm going to ask a little bit more of them. For those of you where it's new, we have a separate checklist. I want to give you a chance to warm up to the method. It didn't create any hard feelings, and it made a lot of sense. And the students, and I think the parents, appreciated that as well. A couple final thoughts. Trust the system. When I first started teaching IEW, I did not trust the system, and I sometimes skipped units or moved things around. I didn't teach Unit 5 at all for the first several years because I thought I knew better. But honestly, once I started to just follow it straight up as written, my students did better. Their skills improved much quicker. They struggled a lot less. They were better and stronger writers, and they had more tools in their toolbox than when I had to try doing it my own way. I also encourage you this first year of teaching IEW to ask plenty of questions. Look for teachers who have more experience teaching it. You could email me. You could email IEW. They have tremendous resources on their website. I really encourage you to check those out. They have a forum for teachers. When I first started teaching with IEW, I asked questions on the forum very regularly and would get answers not only from people who work for IEW, but from other teachers as well. They have a lot of great articles on their website. They have a blog that also has blog posts and a podcast. So you can scroll through old episodes of the podcast and find some that are relevant to what you're doing. So I just want to encourage you. IEW is a wonderful writing system. It can take a little time to feel comfortable with it, so it's okay if it feels challenging or awkward or any of those things. You are not alone. Please do not hesitate to reach out, talk to other teachers, and just try it. It's something that you're going to have to just kind of jump in, give it a go. Each year it will get easier. Each year it will make more sense, and you're going to see how it continues to build, and you'll be amazed at what your students will be writing by the end of the school year. Good luck.